To not bust a nut, to not blow your load. I'll say it in my language.
Retention. Yes.
So, and that gives you the most spiritual power, or the most powerful. Well, it's like a big thing to raise the Kundalini energy, raise your awareness, give you power that you need. There were so many benefits, and then you even explained to me that like every time, like a teaspoon of semen is like 4 teaspoons of blood. So every time you
40
teaspoons. Oh my gosh, 40.
40.
Jeez, I busted a nut the other day, and I thought, okay, that's 4. It's actually 40.
No, 40. 40. That's actually quite a lot. You know, if you measure out 40 teaspoons of your blood, that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it takes to make a teaspoon of semen. You know, that's the energy that your body is investing into that. So the Chinese call this Jing, essence. It's your most vital substance of your body. And you can't get rid of it fast enough for most men. And we're asking the question, what happens if you don't get rid of it? Who do you become?
Mysteries, hidden history, and the unexplained. Join William Collinson and Lee Strydom on Strange and Mysterious World.
Well, welcome to Strange and Mysterious World, Season 3, Episode 24. We're going to be chatting about divine masculinity with Gideon. William, if you can carry on about Gideon.
So Gideon Leroux, he's an acupuncture here in Cape Town. He's an internationally trained practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine with 20 years of experience. His primary modality is acupuncture. He's also a teacher of Tai Chi and Qigong.
Let's bring him in, Will.
There we go.
Start video. There we go. Hello, guys.
Gideon,
nice.
Very good. Nice to see both of you.
Yeah, you too,
love to see you, Gideon.
Well, I say after our last meeting, I can't stop seeing people's middle line.
Actually, Gideon, from our last podcast on face reading, even when I look in the mirror every morning, I'm like, geez, I wonder what that line means. I wonder what that is. I wonder what that, like, I even want to go and chat GTP it. Like, okay, like I was driving this morning and I see this line on my ear, like this earlobe, and I was like thinking, because it looks like I've had a piercing there and someone's ripped the piercing out, and I was thinking, I wonder what that means about me.
The folk knowledge about that says that's a heart issue.
Ooh,
a heart issue?
Shit. That's where you're...
I've got it too, mate. So I've probably got some cholesterol going around my heart.
Oh, okay, so it's like a physical thing, not a like spiritual. Like
it's a physical thing.
I'm angry at somebody or myself or the world or.
But don't take that as gospel. You know, this is just the old wives' tale about what that's not for my studies.
Oh, okay.
The center of the ear where you pierce it is actually the eye. So mariners did that, especially with gold, to increase their eyesight so that they could see land sooner. That's the story behind it. I learned that when I was studying ear acupuncture, and when I saw it on the chart, it just made total sense to me.
Yeah.
So is that where you pierce people for? Not pierce. What do you call it for? Do the needles for acupuncture?
For the eyes. It's bang in the center of the lobe.
Okay.
Oh wow. So if people have pierced ears, they don't actually. You're like they go, I got something wrong with my eyes, and then you go there with the needle, and you're like, oh, too late. You've already pierced it. Now you're gonna be fine, mate. Just go.
I've never heard of stories like that, but I just know the classical history about it.
Okay, so if you tell me I put a gold thing in my ear there, my eyesight will get a little bit better.
That's the idea, yeah.
Oh, okay, I've got a hole there, so I haven't used it for like years, but okay.
Yeah, go stimulate it, see what happens.
Okay.
But maybe you can let the glasses go.
Yeah, shit, that'd be cool.
But the ear's it looks like an upside down fetus. Isn't it?
That's right. That's right. In the classical text, you see it upside down like that as well. So so that the head is at the bottom, and then the legs curl up around the top, and it's folded up, and all the internal organs sit here in the inner part of the ear.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting stuff.
Yeah, I did
Yeah,
not
but
know that.
anyway, we'll talk about that another time. What we wanted to talk about divine masculinity, and also why I think this is so appropriate is because today people have got this thing, like this the buzzword going around, toxic masculinity. I'm like, what? What is this now? Like, has the world got so screwed up in the head that there's like they're making masculinity like a negative thing? You know, it's like, and that's what's. Don't we always have to have a masculine and feminine energy in like everything? I mean. Even the
I
French
think we
call
need
it
to have a masculine, feminine energy in everything. But I do think that there has been instances where the masculine has lost the track, and we've let ourselves be vulnerable to attack in that sense. You know, one man's poor behavior can affect many men, and that's kind of the thing why men have to actually talk about this subject. You know, what is it to become divine? Even if you've been branded as toxic in the past, we believe that you can change, you know. So what is that process of change? It's actually a real passion of mine, is to how do we as men become better? How do we become the ideal man? I think many men is in my position where I've had a divorce and where the children is in a broken home, and how do I, even in that situation, show my boys what is a proper man? How do I show them an example of what is a divine man? So that at least they can follow that example if they can't follow my example of how to have a relationship. Then at least they know what is a decent man. You know,
So
how
what
do
is
I
not a
show
decent
up
man?
man?
So what's
Beg
a
your
toxic?
pardon?
What is a toxic? What is toxic masculinity? What does that mean? When somebody says it's toxic, especially in America, what the hell are they talking about?
I think this is the shadow side of masculinity. You know, a king, for instance, can be a beneficent king or it could be a dictator. So I would say when we call something toxic, it's when we show the most darkest aspect of that thing. So a toxic man would be somebody that doesn't care, doesn't protect, doesn't nurture, doesn't defend, or when he's in attack mode, when he hurts those who don't deserve hurting.
Okay.
So a
But I think
toxic
it
male,
also,
yeah.
I think what's also happened is with the whole cancel culture and kind of that I mean like that whole movement in kind of the universities in America and that
The woke
you know,
movement.
to be progressive or whatever you want to call it, they started deeming everything that was like white male and you know, like the 1% of the people that have money, they try to deem it, you know, especially if you're white and male, you are like the antichrist. Like they try to make you like the worst person. And I think that's also where the toxic masculinity came out of, because they're trying to I don't know. I think they want to live in this world where everything's the same. Like what do you call it? Like homogenous or something. Like everything's homogenous. But I mean, I can't think of a more boring world to live in. I mean, imagine if we all the same and we all the same sex and we all the same everything and we just walking around with the same personalities. We're the same race. We're the same sex. We're the same. We're wearing all the same clothes. I mean, I think of anything more boring, and we should celebrate our differences and realize how special we are and how unique we are, and not make things like now because we male like an evil thing, because they're trying to make. I don't even know what the whole why they're so angry in the first place. Can you tell us?
Well, William, I think you know that this comes out of this term they throw around as well as patriarchy. So, as men, we have invented things, we have built things, we have done hard labor, we've done a lot of creation, but we've also done a lot of damage. We use this position of privilege in a negative way. If you look at a country like Australia, 3/4 of the women have suffered some sort of abuse at the hands of men. That's huge. That means if you're a guy and you go and date a girl, the chance is more likely that she has some damage from the past that's nothing to do with you, but that is going to impact your life. So the reason why we as men need to focus on what is divine, how can masculine become divine again, is to help other men to stand out of this quagmire that we don't hurt people anymore. And that is not a masculine trait, that we can fix those things in our society. It's also really important because so many young men is growing up with fathers in their house. So how can we show those young men an example and help them so that the cycle can get broken, the cycle of abuse, the cycle of hurt can be broken. And that's why I'm having this conversation, because I'm passionate about young men lifting themselves up, becoming leaders, becoming positive influences in our reality.
Yes. And,
Okay,
and
well,
you
look,
have a quote.
Yeah,
Sorry,
sorry.
Lee, you go
Yeah,
for it, Lee.
sorry, man. Growing up, I was always told, men don't cry. If you've done something wrong at school, you gotta get beaten by everybody, your dad, your teachers. It was kind of the norm for us. And I don't know. Looking at myself now, I don't see anything wrong with kind of how the way I've been brought up. I think people go through spiritual journeys and kind of understandings as your life goes on and as you get a little bit older. But I think from the way I've been brought up, for respect for elders and those kinds. Yes, we got hidings plenty. I think a daily hidings. The men don't cry thing, I don't know. They always say don't show your emotions. I don't know. Maybe that's also a reason why a lot of people have issues with their relationships that they're in. That might be quite a big problem actually. But looking at my life now, I don't see. It might be a bad thing. It might be something that should never have happened. But I don't see it as bad.
It's actually a good point, Lee. So yeah, can a man cry? Is that divine masculinity if you cry, or is that like now you divine, not
Divine
divine wussy,
time and place,
the divine loser,
right? There's time and place. We need the ability to be vulnerable, but we also need that ability to be strong and to go through whatever needs doing. But there needs to be a time afterwards where we can actually express the emotion that we've suppressed in order to get the job done. In the Maori culture in New Zealand, it's very beautiful. When the men come back from battle, it's the woman's blessing that takes the energetic negativity that surrounded them in battle, that washes it off them again. It's the women who bring the men back from that awful place where they've been, where they've slaughtered and they've hurt each other and terrible things have happened. But it's in the homecoming that there's ceremony to wash the men energetically clean so that they're suitable to be in the village. See, I think ceremony is one of the things we've lost amongst men. Young men aren't initiated in our culture. In traditional cultures, they're still initiated, but my sons don't get initiated unless me and some of my mates get together and form a process for them, form a process of welcoming them into manhood. In Jewish culture, there's processes for that. I think even in Islamic culture, there's process for that. But in our modern Western culture, that has been neglected.
Yes. Yeah, sure. And I mean, like, that's also, we've lost the ability to celebrate the man. Like, it's because we've been deemed like bad.
Well, I think only through being positive will we be celebrated again. And maybe that will take a generation, and we've just got to do the hard work. We can't cry about that. We've got to do the hard work to actually uplift ourselves and be positive and show that example and help any young man that is wanting to be positive and help each other to hold each other accountable again, so that we say, okay, well, that's not the way to behave. Now, what do you say in Cape Town? One of the problems I'm seeing is open urination in the streets. So do I just walk past that, or do I say, actually, mate, there is a better way to do this? Do I pull that person up that's urinating in the street? And do I say to them, come into my house, use the toilet, please? But this is not what we want to do in the streets. So we have to hold each other accountable and not just complain, but actually provide solutions. If we see a problem, there is our work.
Sorry,
I've kind of got to the point, where, and I see it a lot. I mean, I stay in KZN, so the guys stopping at the side of the street, the oaks in the taxi, they get out and have a piss. I mean, for me, growing up, we were always taught that that's, if you're going to do something like that, you're going to find a bush, you're going to hide behind the bush, and you're going to do your business. If you're like really desperate, otherwise you just stop at a garage and you go and do it. But I found out very quickly that a cultural thing. Culturally, the guys are not kind of at that point where they realize that it's not appropriate. You know what I mean? For most people, our culture doesn't agree with that. So I don't know.
I don't know, Lee. In the city here, I pulled somebody up about that. That's what I'm thinking about. I pulled somebody up about that this week, and they stopped straight away and they apologized, and then they got into their Mercedes.
So did they clamp it? Did they nip it in did they? I mean, it's hard to stop while you're going.
Well, he must have been just about finished because he apologized and I watched him walk away and then literally climbed into a Mercedes.
Oh gosh,
and he knew
crazy.
What he was doing is wrong.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
I hope he didn't shake your hand when he said sorry.
I think this is just simple accountability. And if I didn't say anything, it would have sat with me. Because I said something, I felt better.
Yeah.
Now there's going to be 10 other...
I'll drive past and hoot.
Yes. I think just saying something, and if we can do that in a polite way, if I don't have to bring my aggression out to get my point across. And that's a good example of divine masculinity. I don't have to lose my center, my peaceful being, in order to say, look, I don't think this is appropriate, and here is a solution. I like to offer a solution rather than just complaining about a problem, because I think the divine man sees solutions and is uplifting of all those around him. He's not waiting for other men to do it. He actually is willing to take the weight of whatever has to be done on his own shoulders and does it. That's what divine masculinity is all about. It's actually taking the responsibility into the self rather than pointing the finger at someone else, leading by example.
Yes, and also you talked about giving your inner peace away, or like losing your inner peace, and that's actually your power. So once you lose your inner peace, you lose your power. And it used to bug me because people would be like, why are you giving your power away to that person? And I used to never make sense. I was like, what do you mean I'm giving my power to them? And it only clicked like recently when I was like, oh, because your power is your ability to control your inner emotions. So your inner peace, not your emotions, your inner peace. Yes. So that's when you're the most powerful. If you can do that, you're the most powerful person on the planet. If you can just control, no matter what outside force comes your way, and you can stay centered and peaceful, that is the most powerful thing. So that's when you start getting upset with something and you lose that inner peace. That's you giving your power away. That's
I think so too, William. But I do think there should be a time when you can look at the frustration you felt in that moment. Right? Yeah. Look at that shadow. Maybe you do it if you're really pissed off, you go chop some wood. Then you're still doing something positive, but you can express that emotion that you felt. Or maybe you need to cry, but you can do that when you're home and your partner is there, and you can say, I saw this terrible thing that made me so sad today. And that's when you can have the release. And she will appreciate it because you're being vulnerable with her. You're saving your vulnerable moment for the most important person in your life and sharing it with them and accepting the help they're offering them, even if it's just a hand on the shoulder. But we as men aren't just giving all the time. We have to receive as well. It's actually just how do we navigate when we give and when we receive. Because there is a place for that, for being soft, for being gentle. You're not going to pull your warrior out with your baby. You know, babies is this great leveler. You put a baby into a big, strong guy's hands, and he becomes soft and cuddly himself. So but he's not that when he climbs into the ring because his name is Drickus and he wants to show that he's world champion. So there is a place where even someone like that world champion needs to be able to let go, to be sensitive, to allow others in, to allow the emotions out, and to allow the care to come.
Yeah.
And he's not threatened by that. The divine masculine is then still in his power when he's vulnerable, because he decides when he's going to be vulnerable. He's allowing that to happen. That broadens a man.
Yes, I'd love to see Drickus holding a baby. We should actually make an AI picture. That should be the picture of the whole of this episode.
Yeah. Drickus holding
a baby.
There's the divine masculine right there in that moment. Full power, but using that power for sensitivity.
So Gideon, you have actually made a course on divine masculinity, the 7 steps of divine masculinity.
Yes. I've made a course for men, specifically for men. Sorry, ladies, but I've made a different course for you guys. If you can join me in a different course, but I've made a course for men because I'm passionate about this subject, and I take men through 7 fairly rigid steps to kickstart them into divine masculinity. I have heard from lots of my female clients in the clinic that they've been doing yoga, they've been doing work, working on themselves, growing themselves, and they feel that their partner is just focused on bringing the bacon home. So, and is not growing spiritually. So this is a way for men to take active steps in a way that they feel comfortable with, but that will really center them, ground them, and make them stronger and stand up tall. So we deal with basic issues like fear, right? We deal with our relationship with sex and with food. We deal with our relationship with other men, how we exist in a power situation. How do we manifest our power? How do we grow our power? How do we use our power positively rather than negatively? How do we collaborate rather than compete? We look at what the lover is, what that heart-centered approach is, and we look at our communication. You know, can we speak truth, and what happens when we speak truth? It's a very topical thing right now. There's men who are standing up and just speaking truth, and they're getting a lot of attention for that. And then into the higher centers, how can we bring our intuition? How can we wake up our intuition? How can we wake up our sensitivity? And what is it like to be a divine man? To be seen as one, you know, not to have shame for the manhood that you are. So these 7 steps were designed very much on the chakra system or the Ren and Dumai channels in Chinese medicine, where we can use a sequential process to raise our vibration. And that's essentially what it's about. It's a handheld process to raise your vibration. These 7 weeks is there to transform your life. I've also made, if people want to know more about that, I've also made a monthly discovery call where you can come for free and you can chat with me. It's a Zoom meeting. Each discovery call has a theme that we're working on. In July, it's a 3rd Thursday of the month in the evening in South Africa time or European time. And we're talking about classical books, classical texts, texts that I've studied and that I recommend. So I'm going to give a list of books out and say, well, if you want to look at that, go to that book. If you want to look at this, go to that. ancients have written truths down that's still applicable today. For instance, the Confucian classic, The Great Learning, shows the process. If you've lost your way, the book says there is a process you can follow. The first step is go back to nature. When you can survive in nature by yourself again, then you're ready to step back into your family. If you can, as a divine man, manage and govern your family in a positive way, then maybe you'll be seen as doing that, and then you can start representing or have a voice in your community. When you can have a voice in your community, then maybe you can start taking responsibility in your whole village or your whole town. And when you get to that stage, you can upscale that and eventually run a country, because you're basing it on certain principles. And there's a way to return back to the true path, and you just got to go to the basics again. So this book describes this process. It's a thin little book, but so beautifully written and so clear to understand, and it makes perfect sense. So for somebody that's lost their way, it's one of the first books I'll give them, say, go learn the great learning, right? This great truth that even if you've lost your way, it doesn't matter how bad, you can find your way again. There is a process for it, and it's rooted in nature.
Okay.
And it's rooted about what you have to become, the steps that you have to become to be socially fit again. Let's put it that way.
Okay. And the course, how long is the course, Gideon?
7 weeks.
Okay. And
7 weeks.
And the cost?
Yeah. If you're South African, it's 14,000.
14,000 for 7 weeks, okay?
Yeah, and if you're so it's 2,000 a week.
Okay.
If you think of it like that. So for South Africans, there's a better price because we run a special economy in the world. I think we're just stepping out of grey status. So I felt that people who want to do it, who can't afford the European price, there needs to be a pathway for them.
Okay.
And we can discuss that too in the discovery call. I'll give you guys links for both these things.
Yeah, cool.
So that you can find it easily.
Yeah, 100%. And are you quite busy with the courses?
I'm fairly busy, but there is space. So and because it's only 7 weeks long, there's actually a process afterwards as well. So when you graduated from these 7 weeks, I put you in a waiting room, and then you join a men's group that's guided at first, that can carry on by itself afterwards. So that's one of the benefits of doing this process. You'll meet other men who have also gone through this process, and then you can collaborate and create new things out of that. And I'm going to geographically locate that together as well. So if it's Americans and you want to be an American group, you can wait till there's enough Americans in the group, and then you can join. And that will be a support group that I will oversee initially, but that will carry on for itself. And then in the future, we have some plans of get-togethers, physical get-togethers with the men.
Okay.
But that's probably only next year.
And then this thing you said, you get together every week or every month for like
every fortnight,
like a master class, like a free master class, or what?
Oh, the one that I'm doing that's free, that's once a month. It's on the third Thursday of the month at 8:00 in the evening.
Okay,
and it's free to join.
And how do people find that?
I'll send you the link. They can click on the link, and you just have to put in your email address, and I'll send you the details.
Okay, cool. So we'll put the link in the show notes.
We'll put the link in the description. Yeah, I'll send that to you after the call.
And then, do you want to talk about each step, individually, what each of the steps are?
Well, let's look at the first step. First step is probably to get going is the hardest one. We work on identifying your core fears. And fear is a funny thing. Fear is very close to wisdom, very close to knowledge. The story that I tell people is one my professor told me when I was a student. He says, Mom and Dad's in bed, and the kid's in their bedroom, and the kid cries. And Mum gets up, she goes to the bedroom, switches on the light, and the kid says, well, there's a bear in my room. And mum looks around, looks underneath the bed, can't find the bear, opens the cupboard doors, closes them. No, there's no bear. You go back to sleep. Once it's happened 3 times, she's fed up and she tells the dad, it's your turn. Dad gets up, walks down the hallway, doesn't switch anything on, and says, what's going on? He says, Dad, there's a bear in the room. He says, show me the bear. And there on the wall is the shadow that the whole light is throwing into the room across a coat, and there is a shadow of a bear. And the dad says, wow, let me show you something. I can show you a bird that goes and visits the bear. And with his hands, he makes an eagle that flies across the wall and lands on the bear's shoulder. And he starts showing a rabbit on the wall and a dog on the wall. We've all played with shadows like that as kids. And then he shows the kid by turning the light on and off how shadows work. And the kid is never scared of the bear in the room anymore because they've been wizened up on shadows. And now they've got a whole new thing they can play with. So that fear and the comprehension live so closely together that if we can clearly identify what our fears are, we can throw light on that and figure out why this shadow exists and how this shadow exists. It can actually become a tool for us. It can become a place of play or a place of wisdom or where knowledge is located. If we can uncover that fear and understand why the fear existed in the first place. So that's the first step I do with men is let's look at you individually, look at what's holding you back, what the shadow is. Let's uncover that shadow and see what wisdom we can tap from that. And how can we use that as a new baseline? Maybe you fear that you're not going to make the rent payment at the end of the month. Right? That's a very basic fear, a survival fear. So then we unpack that. We look at that. What will it take for you to have the rent money every month? Do you have to move? Do you have to buy a house? What is the other options that this is showing up? So once we've uncovered, and you have to become vulnerable in that process. To share what your fear is, you have to become vulnerable. And create a safe space for that. And once we have worked that and you've worked some strategies as to how you will deal with fear in the future, then we can look at the next thing. What's your relationship with food? How are you abusing food? Are you just eating briflace every day? And what impact is that having on you? Have you ever fasted? Let's look at that. What does it take for you to restrain yourself? Do you have the willingness or the internal power to restrain yourself? And how can you do that in a safe way and with support? Maybe you learn to fast for a day and make that a weekly practice. How can I restrain myself and what's the benefits I get from that? The cleaning out of the body, the clearer thinking, the brighter eyes. Those are the benefits. And the same way we look at our relationship to sex. What is our addiction to sex? What is our shadow in sex? What is our self-satisfying habits that's not actually supporting who we want to be? And what happens when we restrain ourselves in that situation? What can we achieve with that power buildup that happens in us? When we have more testosterone available, maybe you can do better as an athlete. We tell athletes often not to lose their essence, their seminal fluid before a major event. Maybe 2-3 days before a big rugby game, the guys will tell guys, hang back, build that power up so you can unleash that power on the field. And so by restraining and delaying gratification, how can we then focus that energy to our benefit? And how can we get control over our own urges and master them? Because once we're mastering them by ourselves, then when we're with our partner or when we meet our new girlfriend, we're going to become masterful in the bedroom. We're going to talk about those things, how to become masterful in the bedroom. And that's something that gives you tremendous confidence. And of course, you're pleasing your partner no end. She will look at you with new starry eyes. So the next week we'll be looking at our relationship to power. How do we manipulate those around us? How do we put one over somebody? And how can we change that for the positive? How can we get our staff to love us rather than fear us? How can we get a better quality of work done if we change our approach in relation to power? It's quite often the way we use power is bad habits, right? If I can get away with it, I do it. Instead of what's the highest principle here? So we look at that. What's your internal relationship to power? How do you react when authority is telling you do this, right? Do you have an instant reaction against it and you want to say no to the man, or do you want to find a way to flow with it? Okay, this has to happen. Where am I okay to move like that? Where am I not? Can you be more conscious in your thinking about how power is exercised on yourself and how you exercise power in return? So we're looking at those relationships during that power week. And then what does it mean to fall in love the week after that? What does it mean to be heart-centered? There's this beautiful term. It's called the blessed way. And we think of it in terms of kingship. A king, in a positive way, is blessing everything around him. And it uplifts everybody when we bless. Where a despot crushes everything around them to stand out. So we look at what is the blessed way and how a heart-centered approach supports the blessed way. And that when we're at that stage, then we're ready to communicate. When we've sorted all that part of ourselves out, then we're actually in a place where we can communicate. And what are we going to communicate? What is our relationship to truth? What is our relationship with clear communication, clear setting of boundaries? How can we let go of those vagaries? Yeah, maybe I should. That's not what I see as a divine masculine. You either say, I don't know yet, and I'll get back to you. That's a very different answer to, yeah, maybe we can. And it lets the other person feel much more seen if you say to them, yeah, I'll take that on board. I'm going to have a look at that and I'll get back to you. Or to be able to give them a clear answer, no, that doesn't work for me. Or, yes, that's totally in alignment with who I am. I'd love to be part of that. So in our communication, just by how we communicate, we can change the reality around us, because once we start communicating clearly and effectively, people around us start knowing that they can rely on us because we've given them clear communication. So communication is a very important thing. Once you've sorted out the heart, how you communicate that out there becomes the action of how you live. And that opens you up for week 6, where we look at intuition, where we look at our connection to divinity, where we look at our connection to synchronicity, where we look at how can we be more than just an animal, right? How can we be divine? And then that leads us to that sacred connection that we work with in the last week. I don't want to give all the juicy things away, but that gives you an idea of how we build step by step, sorting these aspects out and finding out where the work is that I have to do. For instance, my work is my relationship to food. Right? I'm working by intermittent fasting at the moment, and that's how I'm getting control over my desire just to feed the sensation. Now I'm working on how I can use food to build strength, rather than just satisfy my need to be entertained with my flavor buds that love entertaining and that I've over-entertained for my whole life. Now I'm actually working on how do I get control over that thing so that it's not the sensation that I'm seeking, but it's the fuel for my strength that I'm seeking. Because I think I have to live it as much as teach it.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I'm good with helping people, holding hands, explaining concepts. but the buck stops with me. I've got to actually start living this too. So I've been practicing this, this intermittent fasting. It has made a difference to my weight, but it's a slow process. And I've got to be patient with that as well. And that's another way I've got to look at myself, and instead of just crushing myself, how do I lift myself up but still be disciplined with myself? That's that balance we walk with divine men. How do I still be upright and strong, but at the same time kind and compassionate, without getting too rigid in my strength or becoming, just a floppy guy who will say yes to everybody? Where do I find that balance in myself? That's what the course is about. Is how do I become divine? How do I consciously walk in that direction? And how do I do it on my terms rather than on the terms that womanhood dictates, or what my partner dictates, or what my kids demand, or what my parents are saying? How do I make it something that's coming naturally out of me rather than something that I'm forced into, that it's truly my choice? Yeah. Because only if it's truly my choice will I actually commit to it. If I feel like she's telling me I have to do this, it ain't going to go so well, because I'm going to be resistant and trying to break the thing to prove that I'm better than the thing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Gideon, I've looked at the course online, and it looks exceptionally amazing and interesting, and it was very inspiring just reading those things, and I'm really excited to do it myself. So we'll have the link in the descriptions below, and and I look forward to seeing how it goes, and also coming on to that free masterclass every month. You say that's also
yes, once a month. Once a month, that's a free dial. You can come every time. There's no restriction to it. It can be boys or girls who come. There's no restriction to that. I'm not just going to be talking about divine masculinity in that. I'm talking about classical text that's applicable to everyone. The Discovery Call is a place where you can come and get to know who I am, and you can ask questions. You can share what you're bringing to the table. It's an open forum. I'm leading it, and each month I have a new topic, because if there's only 3 people and nobody's talking, I'm going to be talking about the topic. But I'm happy to go off topic if there's somebody with interesting questions. I love that. I love that stimulus and banter. And so it's not a lecture where I'm just going to be talking at you. I'm really inviting a conversation. But if no one's talking, I've got some subject that I'm passionate about that I'm going to be talking about. In the case of July, it's going to be about classical books, because we stand on the efforts of giants, people that's come before us. It's good to go and look at the feet of those giants. What's keeping their legs strong? And quite often that was written 1,000 more years ago. There's also modern writers who's doing fantastic things. Dan Millman, you would know, he wrote that Way of the Peaceful Warrior. What an incredible man. I saw him at 60 doing handstands on a coffee table. Wow, I thought, wow, that's so incredible. No, he was an athlete in his youth, but at 60 he can still do a handstand and do a push-up handstand on a one-leg coffee table in front of a crowd, and jump after doing 6 push-ups and just smiling like this was no effort for him.
It wasn't on a bar on the table, was it?
No, it was just a little round coffee table that was sitting next to him, and he just grabbed the sides of it and he flipped himself onto his arms and then started doing push-ups. I was so impressed. What a great way to start a conversation with a group of people, because you've got their rapt attention. I bet you nobody in the room could do that. It's such an incredible physical feat. It won my respect. But he wrote a book, in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, the warrior, the story that he tells about his own youth when he had this accident. He has a guide, and the guide's name, he gives the guide a name, Socrates. So recently he wrote this book called The Journeys of Socrates. He actually tells the backstory of Socrates And that's a much more incredible story than his own story. A story of survival, of going through really difficult things, but also a story of what is possible in meditation, what is possible when we open ourselves up to the divine, what are the gifts that can come with that. And that's a real inspiration. I would recommend anybody, any man that hasn't read it yet, read the Journeys of Socrates. Look at what this man's journey is over 100 years, and look at the situation that he came out of, the terrible things that happened to him, but by taking a positive approach to it, look how it transformed his life. And his life was full of sorrow, but his life was also full of beauty. And all of us men, we have bad things that happen to us, but we also have beautiful things that happen to us. And which wolf are we feeding? You know, the one with beauty or the one with sorrow? And where can we dig into that sorrow to find the gems that's going to propel us? And maybe it takes 2 generations before we see the fruits of our labor, but eventually it's going to come out because we planted those seeds.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Beautiful.
Thanks, guys, for plugging my course, my coaching course. That's so fantastic of you to do. I love this, and I love having this conversation. Thank you very much, Lee and William.
No,
Yes,
cool,
yeah,
man.
thank you, Gideon. We didn't even get into it. We'll have it on another podcast. I really want to get into the semen retention, because you touched on it there with the rugby and that. Like,
Yeah, so this is something we're going to be talking about. You know, people think semen retention is that means you're never going to use your semen again. That's not the case at all. It's simply saying, how do we hone that tool so it's not an everyday knife we're using, but it's a samurai sword we're using.
yes, because like in all of the spiritual practices or disciplines, or I mean, any they always say a celibacy. I mean, even when you go read the Yoga Sutras of what is it, whatever, but like in every
Kama Sutra.
No, not the Kama Sutra, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali's.
Yes.
One of the the first things. There's what people don't understand is yoga. When we think of yoga in a Western mindset, we just think of like women in spandex bending themselves into a pretzel on a rubber mat, which is also so funny because you're supposed to, yoga means connection, and like you're supposed to be connecting with the ground and the energies within and whatever, and then you put a rubber mat on the floor and you're completely cutting yourself off from the energy of the floor. So I'm always like wondering, like, what is this? Why do they even have a rubber mat? We've got it so backwards. But that's the thing, when we say yoga, we think of people bending themselves into pretzels, but that's actually a very small part of the yoga process.
Absolutely.
There's 8 limbs of yoga, which goes from diet to breathing to meditation to the what is this called, the sadhana or whatever.
Sadhana. It's a very integrated process, and in India it was practiced by men much more than women. But as it happened that when it came to the West, smart women, man, they knew that this was good stuff, and they picked up on it, and us men stood at the braai drinking a stubby, and we didn't see this one that went well past us. If you go to any yoga class, it's mostly women, right? Yeah, we missed the boat on this, guys.
But it's so funny because like my daughter's mother, I mean, she was unhappy with me. Well, that's why we're not together anymore. She's always unhappy with me. But I mean, even though we're not together anymore, she's still unhappy with me. But the thing is that when she was saying I'm never present. She's like, you're never present, you must meditate. She doesn't meditate, she doesn't like do anything. She does a bit of yoga, but she was like, you must meditate. So obviously I was, people like trying to fix our relationship. I thought, okay, well, if meditation is going to fix the relationship, I'm going to meditate. And then it changed my life. It really changed my life.
Can I interrupt you? This is a great example of what I was talking about earlier. The moment somebody tells you you have to meditate, you're going to feel resistance to that. You can even look at that resistance because maybe she's got a point. You just don't want to hear it from her.
Yeah, no, but I did it like every day, twice a day. And it really, I mean, that's why we having this strange conversation that you wouldn't have at the bra. I mean,
There
imagine
you
we
go.
started. So it totally flipped me upside down when I started meditating. Like my whole world changed, my belief, but everything. So, so anyway, so the yoga process. So that you're saying yes. So the men. So yeah, I'm saying that the men should be doing this because look what happened to me when that sadhana where you do the positions. That's actually just to prepare you for the meditation or for the rest of the
Absolutely.
yoga process. It's only one limb of the 8 limbs, and then one of the limbs was when you stop having sex. What is it called? We sustain. What is the word?
Panchakarma. No, maybe I'm wrong here. Sorry. That's when you...
Sustenance. What's it? Anyways, to not bust a nut, to not blow your load. I'll say it in my language.
Retention. Yes.
So, and that gives you the most spiritual power, or the most powerful. Well, it's like a big thing to raise the Kundalini energy, raise your awareness, give you power that you need. There were so many benefits. And then you even explained to me that like every time, like a teaspoon of semen is like 4 teaspoons of blood. So every time you
40
teaspoons. Oh my gosh, 40.
40.
I busted a nut the other day, and I thought, okay, that's 4. It's actually 40.
No, 40. 40. That's actually quite a lot. You know, if you measure out 40 teaspoons of your blood, that's quite a bit.
Yeah.
Right? That's what it takes to make a teaspoon of semen. You know, that's the energy that your body is investing into that. So the Chinese call this Jing, essence. It's your most vital substance of your body. And you can't get rid of it fast enough for most men. And we're asking the question, what happens if you don't get rid of it? Who do you become? And it doesn't say never get rid of it, but when it's very controlled, when you decide, okay, this is now the time. I've built up enough power, and this is now the time when I release. It's just like that receiving thing. You know, we as men, we find it hard to receive, right? Because we want to be in control. We think when I receive something, there's a debt owed straight away. So when you go home and you tell your partner about the sad child you saw today, and you both have a little moment with that, you're receiving comfort from her, and you've been vulnerable. So you control the moment you were vulnerable. It's the same with your admission. You control the moment when you are ready to admit, rather than to be victim to the desire to admit, right? It's like your body is not running your life anymore. You're running your life. Your body is the vehicle. And you tell the vehicle when it's going to get petrol, and you tell the vehicle when it's going to get cleaned, right? You don't tell the car is not telling you when you have to go somewhere. You tell the car when you have to go somewhere. It's very much like that. Your body becomes the vehicle, and your spirit becomes the driver. And it's empowering the driver to make decisions that's going to be good for the car, good for the driver, and good for everybody else on the road. Especially with partner.
Yeah, everybody else on the road. It's like everyone else in your life. I'm just having accidents everywhere. Okay, I'm crashing into my daughter's mother every single day.
Yeah, and I know you don't.
Terrible accident, like just blood and just body parts everywhere. I can have to call the whole SWAT team, Jaw of Life. That's every day.
It's not where you want to be, though.
No.
So this course is about navigating and not being that one, not being in that fight anymore, and to change your approach. That it becomes harmonious, and the beneficiary of this approach is your daughter. That's the reason us men need to become divine for the sake of our children. You know, that should be our biggest motivation, for the sake of our children. Even if we don't have children yet, there's a chance that we're going to have kids. We want to be our best selves possible for their sake, because that's how we build a civilization that goes to Mars, for that matter. If we take Elon Musk's example, he's given us an incredible target to shoot at. Now, how do we get there? How do I get my kid to Mars? Well, maybe it's not my kid, but it's my grandchild or my great-grandchild. We have to build the foundation for them to fly starting every day when we wake up. How do I become the best version of myself so my son can be the best version, or my daughter can be the best version of herself, so the grandchildren can have the best place to stand, so maybe the great-grandchildren can get in that ship and fly. My sons asked me about this, and I put a question to them. I said to them, imagine you have a kid who's 14 years old, and they get a chance to go to Mars, but it's a one-way trip. Will you give them permission to go or not? It's a mental exercise I play with my boys. And my boys say, absolutely not. And I say, absolutely, get going. And they say to me, why, Dad? I say, well,
get out of here.
because it's better for our genes if we're on two planets rather than one, right? I'm looking at it from a very broad umbrella perspective. They're looking at about the attachment they will have to their own child. And I'm saying, actually, there's a place where we have to look big. What's better for our genetics? What's better for our family? Isn't it better for us to be spread out more so that we have a greater chance of survival? And they get my point. That's the very interesting thing. But they still say, no, Dad, I won't let my 14-year-old go. Sure. So we're playing with this because I'm showing them sometimes a man has to make decisions that's not comfortable for themselves, but it's to the benefit of others. It's the benefit of a next generation. When some decision you make is to the benefit of your ex-partner and to the benefit of your child. And yeah, sometimes that's not lekker for you, but you know it's going to be better for them. And ultimately, your joy comes out of knowing that it's going to be better for my daughter.
Yeah. No, for sure.
That's a great motivation for any man, especially when it concerns their offspring. We all want our kids to do better than us. We don't want them to make the same mistakes and stumbles that we did.
Exactly. So, yeah, sorry, going back to the semen retention thing.
Yeah.
Elon Musk, he's busted a few nuts, eh? He's got, like, how many? 8 children? 8 children?
Well, maybe he retained it and just used it at the proper moment. And that's why he's got a spaceship full of kids.
Send that woman to Mars.
So what do you want to ask about the semen?
Because in Chinese medicine, there's, like, every age, like if you're 40, you shouldn't actually have an orgasm where you expel semen. Like, I don't know if it's once a week, once a month. Like every age group, there's a certain amount of days you have to build up to be at your full capacity as I don't know, as your divine masculinity or your power or whatever. What is it?
Yes. So, and we find that as older men, right? When you're a young guy, you're good to go several times a day, right? You're like a rabbit. But by the time you get to 40, once a day is definitely enough. And maybe 4 times a week, that's your max.
So when you're 40, that you can do that many times?
Well, if you're a healthy man, yes.
I thought you had to like only do once a week or something.
No, I'm not saying this is the ideal. I'm saying what is the reality for a lot of men.
Okay.
Right? A lot of men, once they've made love to their wife, they can't go a second round or a third round in the same night. That's the reality for a lot of men. Right? Whereas if you practice semen retention, you could go 10 times in the night.
So when you practice semen retention, is that having an orgasm without ejaculating?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Not ejaculating, or only ejaculating when you really want to. That you make a conscious choice. This is now the time when I'm going to release. This is the appropriate moment, the appropriate person that I'm with, and this is the blessing that I'm going to give. The semen has many powerful properties into it. So wasting it on the ground is, biblically it's sinful. It's a waste. It's terrible waste of your essence. So when you invest that essence, you are to invest it somewhere where it's of use. And the highest use you can have is to make a child. Now, you don't make a child every month, but that semen still has benefits for your partner, right? And it's her choice as well if she wants that. But we know from studies that, for instance, there is a antidepressant element in your semen. So if you're always using a condom, let's put it bluntly, then your partner is never getting that uplifting of spirit. Then you haven't sorted out your intimacy properly. Whereas even if you had your tubes tied, there's still an emission that happens. There's just no sperm in that emission, right? So we, as men, have to talk about these subjects, and we need space to do that. There are some spaces for that. I'm creating another. I'm creating a space for men who want to have frank conversations about this without shame, and look at the options on the table and decide for themselves, where is my limits, right? How do I grow myself as a man in relation to this subject? How often do I need to orgasm? How often do I actually need to? And how often do I want to? And how do I bring those two in alignment with each other? I think Lee's going to listen to us now again, now that we've stopped talking about retention.
No, sorry, my bloody microphone put on my head.
Oh, okay. You're right, Lee?
Yeah, I'm fine. Cool.
I like the interesting things in your background. It's fascinating. I'm trying to figure out what they are. Can you tell us about it?
Which things? This one, yeah.
Yeah, what's that?
This is it's actually one of those wooden spiders.
Oh, wow. Wow. Like almost like a white-tailed spider by the look of it.
Yeah.
And the board that stands behind you, what's that?
That's a Chinese dragon. It's a Chinese dragon on the one side, and there's a phoenix on the other side.
Oh, it's a very classic Chinese symbolism, yes.
Yeah.
The dragon and the phoenix. You know, the phoenix is the rebirth, and the dragon is the relationship to power.
Yeah, so that's the phoenix on that side, and that's the dragon.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And where does it come from? How do you have it?
I actually got it from one of these Chinese. It was like a Chinese shop. You know, like these old cheapo shops, and it came in it's like a cardboard thing that you push out and then you like kind of stick it together. So I've had this probably for the last like 10 years.
That's a beautiful thing.
And then I've got snake skin. Actually, snake skin that there's a couple of snakes around the garden. The spotted bush snake. So I've got a lot of snake skin, kind of on that I found. I put them around there.
Yeah, it caught my eye. And then you've got a skull there as well that sits right behind you.
Yeah, so that's actually from Mexico. It's a skull.
Oh, wow. A lot of skulls.
Yes, they celebrate the Day of the Dead in Mexico.
They do, yes.
Yeah, we have a very different relationship to skulls and death than the Mexicans. They have a very interesting idea of celebrating death. Yeah. I actually think there's a beauty in it, you know. I say to my mum, I'm giving her all the flowers now. I don't want to put any on her grave. Yeah. And when she dies, I'm going to have a party. I'm going to celebrate her life. Yeah, I've told her this openly because I want her. She lives such a beautiful life, and I want to celebrate that life. You know, I don't want death to be a sadness between us. It's going to happen at some point, but let's live as good as we can now until that point. And I feel that I will have less. This is my theory that I'm working on. Maybe not. Maybe I'll have streams of water coming out of my eyes. But I'm trying to not have any regret and do everything I can with her while she's here. And I love her so much, you know. So that's why I'm in the country, is to play with my mum and dad so that I can celebrate their lives.
Wonderful. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah.
And that's an example of something coming out of growing my divinity, right? That I want to honor those who made it possible for me to be here. That's getting into a proper relationship with it. That's something the Divine Masculine does. It finds proper relationship with all that is around it. That's an example of how I try to bring divinity into my relationship with my parents, which historically has been a very difficult relationship. And now it's at the best it's ever been. Maybe since I was 12 years old, since I went into puberty, now we've come to a better place of balance than we've had in all those 40-odd years.
Oh. It's like atonement with the Father.
Yes, yes, and by becoming in a proper relationship with my father, I actually also strengthen the relationship with my sons, because they witnessed my rectifying of the relationship with my father, and I know it positively impacts them.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah,
it was
thanks a
awesome.
lot,
So
man.
cool speaking to you, man. Always a pleasure. Such a wonderful conversation. Thank you.
I'll send you those links right now, William.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
awesome.
yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, Gideon.
Cheers,
Have
guys.
a good weekend. Yeah.
Thank
Cool,
you,
man.
too.
Cheers,
Cool, man.
guys.
Cheers.
Bye, bye.
All right, well, that's it for tonight, guys. Guys and girls, hope you enjoy it. Like and subscribe as per usual. And then, we'll chat to you for our season finale for next week. We'll see you then. Thanks, guys. Thanks, Will.
Okay, thanks, Lee. Cheers, man.